Tonight we'll be talking about this middle path, which is the key issue or core of Buddhism. That practice follow this middle path, path leading to Nirvana, ultimate peace and happiness. So, as you see, that it starts at the first sermon given by Buddha at the Deer Park, Isipatana, Marukatayawan, given to the first five disciples. This will be 2,613 years ago. I'm sorry, 2,609, on the full moon of the 8th lunar month. So, what was the content of his preaching? He started with that sermon. It's called Setting Dharma View in Motion, the first sermon given by the Buddha. Dharma View of Middle Path. First, he informed those five disciples to avoid the two extremes, sensual indulgence and self-mortification. As you may recall, the Buddha spent his first 6 years, he was at the age of 35 then. He left the palace. He was a crown prince of the Shakya dynasty in current-day South Nepal, northeastern India. They call Kapilavastu. It's Shakya dynasty. He was a crown prince. He renunciated and seek for the truth as an ascetic. And he lived luxurious life for 29 years. That's sensual indulgence. With crown prince, with 3 palaces, each for they have 3 seasons there: rainy, summer season, and then winter season. Winter there is by the foothill of Everest, so it can be fairly cold there. So 29 years as crown prince, lived luxurious life, and then he left to seek for the truth for 6 years, self-mortification, fasting until he became skin and bone. And he told them you should avoid those 2 extremes. Those 5 disciples followed him for most of the 6 years that he tried the self-mortification. Then he kind of stated that sensual indulgence basically is sensual pleasure. You enjoy for 29 years, I think he said. It's low, crude, vulgar, ordinary, common, ignoble, unprofitable, pointless, and usually you end up never enough. Like you hear people who got rich, they never have enough. They will seek for more, get more. It's why never enough. It's like a loose string on a string instrument like this guitar. You can't play the music because it's loose string, won't play, won't make any good music. It won't vibrate. About self-mortification, he tried for 6 years, almost died because he'd fast himself. He tried different methods like pushing the tongue against the hard palate and hold his breath and so on until you feel like the wind is coming off his ear. And the last one, he tried fasting, till he became skin and bone and almost died. He passed out. And the young shepherd thought he was dead and was a corpse or something, was peeing next to him. But then he when the Buddha was ascetic then, Siddhartha, he woke up from and so the young shepherd milked him the sheep or the goat milk into his mouth, and so he gained the strength. In India, the untouchable should not, or lower caste should not touch the high caste. The priest is the highest setting. So he didn't dare touching him. So he squirted the goat's milk into his mouth. Then he woke up. And then he said those are suppressive, extreme self-mortification. It's painful, ignoble, unprofitable, and useless. And when he woke up, the Buddha overheard the music. The musical teacher was teaching a young student in the boat that was passing by. And first he played instrument. He tied up. The string was too tight. It broke. Can't play any music. Then he retied a new string, but it was too loose. Didn't play good music. Finally, the teacher advised him just to do medium strength. So then he played beautiful music. Then he realized, I was such a fool, trying self-mortification like a broken guitar or sitar, or basically, or I was too loose when he was a crown prince. It's useless. So the two extremes he said to avoid. He said you should practice middle path. Avoid the two extremes. It's not between the two extremes. It's avoid the two extremes of middle path, which deal with morality, concentration, and wisdom, as shown on this slide. So then he went on to state that the middle path is the noble eightfold path. Deal with wisdom, start with right view, right thought, and then morality, deal with right speech, right action, right, and mental concentration or steady mind is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So it's summed up as morality, concentration, wisdom. In practical aspect, you start with wisdom. So we have an open mind, a right view first. Otherwise, you won't be sitting here to listen to me. So you can go home and learn by yourself and so on. So basically, but in the social life, it starts with morality, concentration, and wisdom, or threefold training: morality, concentration, and wisdom. In the social system, we have observed moral codes, like in Buddhism, for lay people: no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, and no intoxicant. So, and then mental concentration, like we just did, we did an insight meditation. We try to gain mental steady mind, mental concentration, so the mind would be charged up with a steady mind, have strength to realize the truth, which is the wisdom. With inside wisdom, you see true nature of things as they really are. They are impermanent, or unstable, imperfect, unbearable, and not selfless in nature, or uncontrollable. So those are the three universal marks that govern everything in the universe, including our body and mind. So then the Buddha taught those 5 disciples that this is the middle path, realized by Tathagata. He named himself Tathagata, or the Buddha. He addressed himself as Tathagata. Tatha Tathata means thusness, the one who knows thusness. Tathagata means the one who knows thusness. The way things are, like the three universal mark of existence, impermanence, imperfection, selflessness. He said it generates this Noble Eightfold Path, generating wisdom, generating insight, leading to peace. Peace is another name of Nirvana, ultimate peace and happiness. To direct knowledge, to self-awakening, to extinguishment of all suffering. Liberate yourself from suffering, which are that every being on earth faces in our life. And this is the fourth noble truth, or fourth ultimate truth, as it literally means. So what are the four ultimate truths? He went on to describe this. It's based on dependent arising, which is the exemplified form of this four ultimate truth. Is summed up as four ultimate truth, which we'll go through. It's about to show the cause and effect. The second noble truth is the cause of the first one, and the fourth noble truth is the cause of the third noble truth. So I'll go through that. Well, this is the kind of a quick way to describe the Four Noble Truths through the mind. It's summed up by Luang Pu Dun Atulo, the late Luang Pu Dun, Venerable Thai monk, forest tradition, forest monk. So the first noble truth is suffering, is the result of the mind reaching outward. Because of clinging to the self, you try to please your ego or self, and end up, as a result, end up with suffering. It's the second noble truth is the cause of suffering. The second noble is the cause of the first one. So second noble truth is caused by mind reaching outward with sensual desire, liking and disliking, or defilements, or craving, result in craving, with a strong desire, result in craving, want it badly. So as a cause of suffering. The second is the cause of the first one. The third is the end of suffering, Nirodha or Nirvana, end of suffering, mind seeing mind clearly. As a result of mind seeing mind clearly, mind would clear itself from those distractions or phenomena not worth clinging to, resume the norm of them, equanimous mind, true nature of the mind itself, unbiased mind. And the fourth that we went through, middle path, have noble eightfold path towards the end of suffering. So caused by the mind reaching, mind seeing mind clearly. It means you have mindful awareness guarding the mind. On the first one, suffering is to be comprehended. The cause of suffering is to be eradicated. So the suffering you want to get rid of in the general common sense, but in Buddhism, is that you can't avoid it. So you just comprehend, learn about it, and then you get rid of the cause of suffering, which makes sense. Is to be eradicated so that you don't end up with suffering. When you don't have any cause, then it ends the suffering. So as the third is the consequence is to be realized, and the fourth is to be cultivated by practicing insight and concentration meditation to gain mental strength. So kind of energize the mind with the mental power to see the true nature of things, and with impermanence, imperfection, selflessness, then it let go, no longer cling to it. So you end suffering to be realized. The fourth is to be cultivated. So then the Buddha went on the first noble truth to describe, at the end of the first noble truth, he talked about person or being, the combination of the five aggregates or five group of existence of form, which are include your body as well as your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, or sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, thoughts, which are formed, come in contact with your body and mind, and feeling, perception, mental impulse or thought formation, and the fifth is consciousness. So form a body, and as well as those waves that come in touch, like visual waves, sound wave, and so on. Basically, a food particle that hit your tongue or your nose. So those you can realize physically. But the other last four, you already realize mentally. Consciousness is the mind, it's formless. Travel far, reside in this body or this cave, your body, cavity, this cave. And reside in, and roaming around your thoughts and so on. And the mental impulse, as well as feeling, perception, that's called mental activities. These three. See, mind is formless, so you can't see it, but you can trace them down, track them down through the feeling, perception, and thought formation. You can see that, especially with practice, meditation. Your mind's swifter and see that clearly. But they're all unstable, unbearable, uncontrollable. Follow the three universal mark of existence. And every time we perceive things, we generate in the act of knowing, perceive mental pattern from the object. Like this is my iPhone, this is my computer, laptop. So you also generate a sense of self in the act of knowing that this is my phone, my laptop, and so on. But we'll go through that a little bit later. So this is called mental activity, feeling, perception, and thought formation. Mental activities that you can track them down in your practice. And as I said, your mind generates a sense of self in the act of knowing. You generate a self-image hologram, which is not only transiently happening while you interact with the environment through sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts. Temporary existing, but you don't let go. It just cling to it, become permanent self. Then troubles start to arise because it won't follow your command. You just thought it's yours. Become permanent self, which is not true. It's but self-image hologram, as you know. It's not truly existing. It happened in the air like hot air. Not truly existing. So the Buddha went on to say, to be born is suffering, to age is suffering, to die is suffering. Physical and mental ailment are suffering. So the first part is about physical aspect. The mental ailments start talking about the mind. And then it says sorrow, lamentation, grief, despair are suffering. Deprived from your loved one is suffering. Didn't get what you want, suffering. Got what one doesn't want is suffering. So that deal with mental aspect. Then he went on to say, sum up at the first noble truth. In the first noble truth, he said, the five aggregates of clinging are suffering because you cling at self-concept, or self-image hologram that you generate in your mind. The five aggregates basically represent a life form, or a body, a person, a being, not body. It's a being or a person. This form, a body, as well as those sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts, feeling, perception, mental impulse, thought formation, and consciousness. They form the five aggregates, five group of existence of clinging. By itself is bad enough because they follow the three universal marks: impermanence, imperfection, selflessness. It won't follow your command. and you cling it as self, as that person is yours, truly yours, and so on. You kind of double your ego and so on. Each one of them, you can't control it completely because you can nurture it. Try not to get old, not to get gray hair. You nurture yourself, exercise to get strong and so on. But they don't follow your command. It just runs its own course. So is your feeling, perception, mental impulse, and consciousness. So this is the first noble truth as described by the Buddha. So as I said, they all follow, each one of them follow the three universal laws of existence, impermanence, imperfection, selflessness, and not self. There is no true permanent self entity, no being, no person, no self, no you, no me. It's but conceptual, suppositional, because you and me, Susie, Kongsak, Stephanie, and so on. We name it as such. And over 100 years of searching, neuroscientists haven't found any place in the brain where self is located. So you gain insight when you practice into these universal marks that we talk about. Physically, you may see a person like a baby in the crib become a toddler, become a teenager, and become a young man, middle-aged man, old man, and death, like each chapter of the book, but only one way. You don't go back to be a baby anymore. It's one way, getting older and dead and die. So physical change you may follow can be easily recognizable, but mentally is difficult to perceive as mind is formless. So mindful awareness that we practice can catch your thoughts or the mind movement. And then you can come to witness these three universal marks or characteristics of impermanence, unstable, and is obscured by continuity, blind. It's like when you haven't seen, like your niece or nephew for maybe a couple of years. Oh, you grew up a lot because lack of continuity, we break it. See, and thanks to impermanence, he can grow or she can grow. But if you lack of continuity, then you see this is impermanent, not being a toddler anymore, or not being a young kid anymore, or imperfection. It's unbearable. Movement, like you sit for a while, you get so but you just move around, move a little bit. It can solve the problem of the pain. Movement or motion can obscure it. And not self or selfless, uncontrollable. You see, like bundling can obscure it. If you unbundle it, like you get old, you get stroke, then you couldn't move one side of your body. Then you see the selfless are not self in nature. The thing are not perfect. And then it also generates a sense of a self-image hologram, self-concept, which is not truly existing. It's a temporary. Existing is not true permanent self. You can see that your body start decaying, old. And this is basically a scene from when the Buddha get enlightenment, ninth is enlightenment. He tracked down this craving or house builder. It's a second noble truth, craving for sensual desire, liking and disliking. So that strong desire can become the house builder. It conditioning your thoughts to crave, and if you get what you want, is as you see in the little Buddha, Keanu Reeves playing this. He saw his own image, reflection in the pool as the house builder. Maybe say, through the rounds of many births I roam, without reward, without rest, seeking the house builder. Painful is death, and that is birth, again and again. House builder or craving, I have found you. You shall build no more houses. All your rafter broken, the rich pole destroyed, gone to the unconditioned. The unconditioned basically represent Nirvana, ultimate peace and happiness. The mind, his mind have reached that point of unconditioned. Nothing can condition anymore. So he reached Nirvana. And so this is from Dhammapada. So he destroyed that house builder. He said, gone to the unconditioned, the mind has come to the end of craving. I don't crave anymore. Dhammapada 11. So he destroyed that self-image hologram there. He see himself very clearly at that point. So that become the second noble truth by destroying the craving. And he reached Nirvana, which is the third noble truth. He explained that after his enlightenment, that passage. Why does one suffer? We suffer on one's own biased thoughts, or one's own thought, basically, because embedded with greater delusion. Excuse me. And then the Buddha stated that true nature of the mind is luminous, but tainted with transitory mental impurities. Transitory, and underline that because it's not the true nature of the mind. It transits through, but it decides to home in because you allow it to happen. It home in and keep tainting your mind with mental impurity. That's why you keep suffering. Keep on suffering because you don't see the root of it, which is your own biased thoughts. And embedded with greater delusion. It's sneaking or piggyback with your thoughts. Thought itself, your mind itself doesn't have greater delusion, but it, because of your thoughts, biased thoughts is embedded with greater delusion. It tainted your mind. So that's the way neuroscientists describe how your mind functions. When you see the object at the bottom of that arrows, it travels through your perceiving organ, sensory organ, eye, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Perceive to your brain. Say, this is my phone, this is my computer, laptop, this is my pen, this is my house, my car, and so on. And equate to what the Buddha taught 2,600 years ago. With biased perception, um, cause craving to please phantom ego, which is not true existence. In the four foundations, he described six sense organs, or spheres of eye, nose, tongue, body, and mind. With the corresponding consciousness, eye consciousness when you see sight, temporary activating, arise and cease. Ear consciousness when you hear my voice, gone. Let me go. Nasal consciousness, unconsciousness, body consciousness with the contact, and mental consciousness with thoughts. It results in contact, feeling, or fruition, which is fixed. You can't do anything about it because you're feeling it. Like this is you touch a fire, it's hot. You can't do anything but just experience it. Perception, pure perception. And then you have biased perception after that. No, it's tainted now, biased perception. It results in craving, disturbing thought, and obsessive thoughts. So it shows like on this, the left corner, when your brain perceives a sight through your eyes, it went through the mid of your brain, mid part of your brain, optic to the optic tract, and going to the visual tract to the back part of your head, visual center, visual cortex. And the feedback loop is instead simple, it become or equal to the input, become 5 times stronger, the feedback loops. So it's a lot of amplification, glorifying what you're perceiving. So this is nice music, nice car, nice home, and so on. You generate a sense of self or I tag in the process because it generates the ego concept in there. Instead of pure perception, become biased perception. This is what neuroscientist Professor Damasio, he used to be head of neurology at U of Iowa, now he moved to USC, the Reka Brain Center there. In parallel with generating mental pattern for an object, and the brain also generates a sense of self in the act of knowing. So that's very important because the ego itself doesn't exist until you generate mental pattern from an object. So this is my phone, my iPhone, my laptop, my. It come afterwards. So you generate a sense of self, self-image hologram. But the Buddha didn't say that. He's kind of follow what the Buddha said. Buddha said it's not parallel, it's sequential. So you see that pure perception become biased perception. It's not parallel, it's sequential. With generate mental pattern from an object, the brain also generates a sense of self. If you stop it there with pure perception, there's no biased perception. So this is resolved in craving. And craving is the second noble truth that they talk about. Craving is sensual desire, liking and disliking. But you have mindful awareness. You can stop it with the pure perception without generating biased perception. So no more craving. So you can practice to train your mind to stop things over there with mindful awareness. Generate no biased thoughts. So no more suffering. So you can end it there, which is Nirvana, end of suffering. So just to reiterate, a life form, a person, a being, is form, feeling, perception, thought formation, and consciousness. And those are mental activities. The last 4 are formless, but you can trace feeling, perception, thought formation. Consciousness, you can't see it until you see in the vision, then you can see your mind. But it interact with feeling, perception, and thought formation. So when you expose to external spheres of sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts, become endearing and pleasing. It tainted your mind unless you have mindful awareness to stop it. If you perceive it with mindful awareness, it becomes pure perceptual processing. It's a pure perception. It's active and neutral, pure, not being tainted. You always feel. Vedana means feeling. Sanya means perception. feeling of perception is pure. It's hot, this is fire, hot. Just stay away from it, that's it. No craving. But then if you go further, or basically you didn't have mindful awareness, it runs its own course, become passive, conceptual processing. You're in the conceptual world, called Sanjat Chetana, bias perception. So become passive and cause more problem because of you glorifying your mind. Craving arise and sustain with bias becomes. Go back to the middle path. Not only sensual indulgence and self-mortification you should avoid. Other aspects like eternalism and nihilism is also one should avoid. Eternalism, like when you pass away, you being born in a different realm, in the heavenly realm or hell realm or whatever. As a true permanent self, which the Buddha denied that. There's no true permanent self. Or nihilism or nothingness. This is different than voidness and emptiness in Buddhism. Here is nothingness and then nothing existing, which is not possible in the universe anyway. But he said to stay at the middle path. And the middle path basically represents dependent arising, cause and effect, as I mentioned, which is the more exemplified form we mentioned. The Buddha summarizes Four Noble or Four Ultimate Truths based on this dependent arising. We mentioned about the second Noble Truth is the cause of the first Noble Truth, and the fourth Noble Truth is the cause of the third Noble Truth, which is the fruition or consequence of it. So it's cause and effect that run this middle path. Nothing exists by itself, and nothing is permanent because it's dependent on cause and effect. So it's no true eternalism, and it's not nihilism because there's cause and effect. You see what I'm saying? That's why I become middle path. Dependent arising, we have lively thoughts. Your ignorance of being foolish, mental impulse tainted your mind, mental consciousness, you generate self-image. Sixth sense spheres tainted, contact feeling, all tainted, result in craving, clinging, as self-concept, becoming your thoughts with the self-concept, birth into the thoughts, and your thought ripe down, and your thoughts cease, you get grief, sorrow, lamentation. When you are it end up with a lot of ego. I was but with awareness, mindful awareness, it will cease, ceasing. So I disappear. This whole cycle dissolve, become selfless for the ultimate peace and happiness. That's dependent arising, which is the key teaching in Buddhism. So middle path also we talk about the two pairs, and they're also like craving and concepts that when we meditate, Buddha always mentioned craving and concepts, which is idealism, deal with the mind concept. You see people, all the war in the world now, you see, is based on the concepts. Idealism. You're not mine. They kill even same country, Sudan, they kill different tribes, and so on. And materialism, I don't have to mention, we want the latest model, this laptop, this new iPhone or whatever, craving beyond the basic necessity. And we end up with desirable or liking, undesirable, disliking, which is not the true nature of the mind. So it's all based on attachment or aversion. So you can see they all based on dependent arising and the cause and effect, interdependence. But in reality, they are but impermanence, imperfection, selflessness, not self. And we end up with being a fool by your own thoughts, which deal with space and time. You trap in the space and time, like about event that happened years ago. You always go back to it, which is thought and concept always deal with time, kala, and space or tesa. They're not pure perception or sanya or parisuti, nor a true direct experiencing. It's not called savasang vedana, true direct experiencing. It's not mindful awareness. You lack of mindful awareness. That's why mind drag you into the thoughts. But being conditioned by one's own biased thoughts, sanya chetana, which is in the cycle I showed you at the table before. So you end up with not seeing the ultimate reality, but in the conceptual, virtual phenomena. That's why Luang Por Tien that teaches dynamic rhythmic meditation. He revived this ancient technique. He said one suffers out of one's own thoughts. We showed a slide earlier. The Buddha also said, past is gone, future hasn't arrived yet. Why being bothered by them? And this is what ignorance meant. Vicca, ignorance means, you trap in the not knowing the Four Noble Truths, tap in the thought of the past, which became consequence, and trap in the thought of the future, which will become the cause. And then sometimes you trap in the stream of thought from the past into the future. And then the last one, because you don't see the present, is the result of cause and effect dependent on arising. That's what I can go back. That's what I've described to you. So cause and effect can become the key to the whole thing. So human is an advanced being. The reason we're advanced being, you know why? And they've been shown now that we spend less time in consuming food. In the old days, we become hunter-gatherer. We spend about 70% of the time finding food, eating food, like a chimpanzee or monkeys. They have to seek for food, or they have to climb from one tree to the next and so on. So spend 70% of the time, even like horse or other animals that eat grass, which is they call it low quality. So they spend 70 or more times on consuming, eating. So you can consuming it, so bacteria in your gut. That's why you have so many stomach to digest it for you, because your body can't do it yourself. Okay. And then out of the intelligence, they found human beings learn to use fire. So when you cook food, it's much easier for your body to digest it and become carnivorous too, instead of become omnivorous rather. So we eat both meat and veggies. So meat kind of like high quality. It feeds your brain get bigger. So more intelligence. That's why we think a lot. Animal doesn't think a lot. They only think for next meal. Where's the food? But we think beyond that because we only spend 5% of our time eating, consuming food because it's ready to eat. You know, you can go to a restaurant or order. So That's why your brain growing a lot, because of a lot of protein helping to build your frontal lobe with deal with thinking. So we advanced being. We only animal that think too much until we commit suicide. Even though they said sometimes a whale or dolphin, whale usually, they come ashore, they die as a group. It may not be true because it could be ear damage, the inner ear damage, vestibular damage from the high degree of sonar they use in the military, like 50 decibel or higher. So we're capable of training oneself to perfection. We're the only animal that can train oneself. So we luckily, and then the Buddha said, you can train yourself to perfection. And those are the top rows are the relics of the Lord Buddha, of various things. The bone content relics, like the middle on the top is from his blood vessels. And sometimes they can turn into like, the serum can turn into like almost like raisin looking, crystallized. And then on the lower left is from the, used to be white bone, it turned to crystal like that. That's from my collection. Those are cremated bone that's became relics, which is like a tiny grain of rice. Normally, the bone after cremation, they're like chalk, kind of a harsh, white, hard. But this one look like shiny grain of rice, but later on turned into crystal. And the Buddha taught us to learn life, the whole thing, learn about yourself, your life. With the four foundations, observe your body, feeling, mind, mental phenomena. To see yourself. It's a lifelong learning process until you reach Nirvana. If you don't succeed in this life, try the next one. Next one. So, okay. So with the threefold training, morality, mental concentration, and wisdom. So Buddha was antedate the 20th century lifelong learning concepts by 2,600, 2,500 years, because he taught this 2,600 years ago. So this is what we do, the 24 mindfulness meditation. We did the rhythmic dynamic meditation, which is like walking with meditation with your hands, but more complex into 14 steps, but you don't need to count. It's all conceptual. It has no meaning, but it's a way to fool your mind to be at your body, with yourself, won't be roaming around. The dynamic rhythmic. You persevere or ardent in your practice with self-awareness, alert, and mindful. Practice 24/7 by observing your body, feeling, mind, mental phenomena with mindful awareness, mindfulness, self-awareness. Get rid of desiring undesirable nature that arises, body, feeling, mind, mental phenomena. And observe and see the true nature of things that follow the three universal marks of existence: impermanence, imperfection, selflessness. Unstable, unbearable, and uncontrollable, and leading to insight wisdom, and see that the burden that you've been carrying around, clinging to self concepts. The mind gets smarter when they equip with mental strength and see the true nature of things. Become disenchanted, discern, dispassionate, and release and liberate from suffering. Buddha is also the teaching. This is from the latest teaching in Visuddhimagga, a path of purification. For there's suffering, but none who suffers. Doing exists, although there's no doer. Liberation is, but no liberated person. Although there's a path, middle path, there's no goer, because there's no ego there. If you have ego, you're not getting there yet. Okay? This from Path of Pure Visuddhi Mark 513. And Luang Por Kam Kien said, just pure perception, he said, not being anything to anything. So the contact didn't result in the biased perception, pure perception. And Luang Por Dun said, and see the mind, kill or let go of it, of that mind. See the knower, kill it, kill the knower, because you don't want ego there. See the Buddha, kill him, because it's your mind generating. It's not true, just image you generate to achieve the absolute purity. In Zen Buddhism, they say the same thing. If you see the Buddha on the road, kill him. Basically, doesn't mean actual. Just let go of your mind reflection you're generating through your ego. And that's the essence of this talk about middle path. Let me save this.